Hi, this is Yussuf Manzi, designer, creative director, artist. How did I start out? Well, pretty much my whole life has been revolved around fashion from a young kid, from what I could remember. Just from my parents, just really instilling the idea of being ready and just being prepared for the world that's outside. So fashion was almost like an accessory to who I became and what I became, and it molded me into becoming the person who I am today. It wasn't up until I graduated in high school when I started to take fashion a little more seriously. It started off with a trip that I took to Canada in Montreal. I've always been interested, but that trip really showed me how much fashion could be considered art, whereas before fashion was more considered as a trend, something of the zeitgeist of just looking a certain kind of way and fitting in. But going to Montreal, it was more about understanding style, understanding silhouette, understanding that clothes could have form and functionality. So that was kind of my entrance into seeing fashion at a bigger picture and getting more interested into the design aspect of it. I've always been interested in fashion because I really don't know why I've always been interested in fashion. I feel like it's just been a part of my whole life. It's been a part of who I am. It's been a part of my DNA. I mean, since I was born, my parents have really just kind of put me in clothes that were dope, Like I can always go back and look at my childhood pictures and, I always had a style that was unique. And as I grew older, I've had, friends and family who inspired me, to really just get more and more interested in the fashion just by how they dress, how it fits into their lifestyle, their character. That's pretty much how I've kind of grown more into liking fashion. But the truth is, I've always liked fashion since I could always remember. So what inspires me is just everyday life. It could be anything from something that I may see. It could be someone working. It could be someone walking down the street. It could be a friend or a family member, a stranger that I don't know. They may end up wearing something or have a certain pattern or a certain silhouette that may trigger my mind into looking at something differently. Sound, that's something else that really tends to trigger my creativity. So listening to music definitely heightens my inspiration for sure. And just my energy, how I feel, and how those things that I see and what I hear actually end up making me feel. That tends to play a really large role in how I go through my creative process. So what pushed me to move to New York was going out there to look for inspiration, going out there to truly find myself in the mecca of art, in the mecca of expression. New York is pretty much like the capital of that when we think about where we are in terms of the States. Maybe even the whole world. This is where hip-hop was birthed and punk rock, and so being there, it definitely allowed me to step out of my comfort zone a little more and kind of just really dive into the art scene a little more, and really just learn about myself a little more as well. Being out there for like 3 years, I attended school, went out there for fashion merchandising, marketing. After I graduated, I spent a couple of months in Brooklyn until I realized that I needed to move back home. And a big part of that move was I felt like I was starting to begin to chase something, and the art was starting to become compromised. I was noticing that being in New York started to feel more like a to-do list almost, rather than an experience, because being out there felt like, okay, this is something that I needed to do. After I had graduated, after I spent all those years being there, it kind of felt like, all right, you know what, I need to go back into actually feeling again. Things started to get pretty numb out there. Being in a big city, you're chasing checks, because you have to live. You end up losing what you actually went out there for. At least in my experience, that was what happened. So coming back home was almost a way for me to get a breath of fresh air and kind of hit the reset button and start to feel things a little more again. I would say the most challenging thing when it comes to the business is finding the right people to work with. That definitely is like, by far the biggest challenge, because the challenge isn't always like actually coming up with ideas. That's not a hard thing to do. As long as you're present and as long as you're in the moment, those ideas are going to come to you naturally. The issue is when you have these ideas and when people tend to take those ideas and not take them as serious as you are. And it's not even about seriousness, but it's about actually giving a fuck about what you're doing, and that tends to be the issue in today's time a little more, because everyone's just kind of chasing for clout, everyone's kind of chasing for a quick shortcut and a come up, and the art is starting to get compromised. So it's like we're living through like the disco era, or like the Xerox machine, where everyone is literally just pressing a button and just copying and pasting everything else. And so I feel like the challenge right now is really, finding your DNA, finding what makes you you, and being great at being yourself, and finding those people that will cater and embrace that. My happiest moments is actually being able to release the work. So a part of the challenge, that's like the curse, but like the gift is actually that moment when you have the ability to put the work out. So when you actually get that moment to really just look at the work and reflect and just see it and being able to touch it and be able to, give it to the world and allow them to find joy through it, I feel like that's the happiest moment that I get from creating. So what I wish someone would have told me about the process, well, I guess it's, just to be patient. I feel like that's kind of like the biggest learning lesson that I've gotten so far is patience is key. Rushing into things never really tends to work out in your favor, because you're forcing things, you're forcing ideas, you're forcing people to like you, you're forcing people to appreciate your work, and that's never how it should be. It should just be completely organic. So a big part of what I wish someone would have told me is, take it slow, take it easy, because it will happen. As long as you're working, you will evolve and things will continue to grow. The advice that I would give to someone who's starting out is be yourself. I mean, that's the most important thing. As someone who enjoys creating, I'm a fan first. I'm someone who really appreciates this shit. So, what I appreciate are people who express themselves unapologetically, who really approach this shit with a mind that really is catering to themselves, you know what I'm saying, rather than being someone who wants to cater to, whatever the fuck else that everyone else thinks that matters, you know what I mean? Like, be yourself. That's the best thing that I can tell anyone. Just be you, just do you. Like, at the end of the day, someone's gonna like it. And even if they don't like it, who gives a fuck? Like, you're doing this because this is what you love to do. This is about you being able to give the world the best version of yourself. How could you possibly do that when you're too busy trying to compare yourself to other people, or when you're trying to compete with other people? So being yourself is the most liberating thing that you can possibly do. So currently I'm working on a project with Mingy Zingy, a lifestyle wellness brand. Currently we've collaborated on 3 to 4 pieces, all of which are being released this month. And shortly after, I'll be working on my spring 2018 project. So those are two of the biggest things right now that I'm kind of looking forward to. So what's changed from when I started till now in terms of designing? I honestly can't say much has changed because I feel like since I've started, I've always had the vision of what I always wanted. And even where I'm at right now, this is the vision that I had back when I was 18. So in all honesty, I'm kind of watching a movie and I'm playing the lead role. So in terms of what's changed, I can just say that the only thing that's changed is the time. That's really it. The last thing I would like to say is I'd like to thank Mimi for doing this interview. I'd like to thank everyone at Focus TV. I would definitely like to thank all of the people, who've supported over the years and who've shown love and continue to, follow me through the journey.